team of young researchers is on its way in Thailand. They're heading north to one of their research sites to learn more about rural communities and how they deal with the impacts of climate change. 5 PhD students and their assistants work here for the TransRe project, headed by the human geographer Patrick Sakta-Polrak.
The TransRe project is a young research project funded by the German Ministry of Education and Research, with the aim supporting young researchers in the areas of global change research.
Southeast Asia and Thailand are one of the epicenters of global environmental change. Weather-related extreme events, such as typhoons, floods or droughts, are happening more frequently. In Thailand, the impacts of such events are quite diverse. They range from sea level rise at the coast to extensive floods in the central plain, like in 2011. The settlements and the livelihoods of more than 13 million people were affected. There are, however, less dramatic and more subtle impacts of climate change that challenge rural societies on a persistent and daily basis. The increasing unreliability of rain.
What we can see here is the effect of dry spells on rice production. Because there's no rain and rice doesn't grow, the wheat become dominant in the rice field, and rice farmers are forced to cut off their rice because the output won't be sufficient and beneficial.
Not only crop yields are affected, but more essentially, the general availability of water.
If there's no rain, we don't have water. So he said that during this situation of drought that we have this year, it's creating difficulties for people. There's not enough water to be used for the agriculture, and we reported to the responsible authorities, but they haven't responded in time, and so we have to help ourselves.
Rural communities have to adapt to the local conditions and changes. Adaptation strategies often include migration. Thailand is an ideal research site, as rural areas are highly connected to outside places. Migration is an essential part of people's life and an important source of income. According to the International Organization for Migration, recent decades have seen Thailand evolving to a regional migration hub. People migrate within the country to find work in cities like Bangkok, or they go to other countries, such as Taiwan or Singapore.
The research in the TransRe project starts with the observation that migration, regardless of the projection of climate change, it's happening already, and it's a major driver of global change. Compared to other projects in this research field on migration environment, the special thing about the TransRe project is that we are trying to understand the impact of migration on the place of origin of migrants in terms of climate change adaptation from a multi-layered perspective. In order to answer our research questions, we are combining different methods, starting with participatory rural appraisals, assessing the vulnerability of households in the rural areas of origin of migrants, combining it with multi-sited ethnography in order to understand how connectedness between migrants who are working in the city centers or abroad to their place of origin is produced and reproduced. We are combining it additionally with a more formal social network analysis in order to understand how network structures influences the way people deal with risk in the place of origin of migrants. And last but not least, we are looking at the broader stakeholder and policy context and try to understand the governance structure and its impact on the local level. Our research group is based at the University of Bonn in Germany, but we are carrying out our empirical research in Thailand and working in northeast and northern Thailand in 4 provinces. We are trying to cover different archaeological settings. We're trying to cover different embeddedness in migration networks, and we try to cover different exposure to environmental risks. And based on that criteria, we selected the 4 provinces.
To find the ideal research site was an intensive work, and the team visited more than 50 villages in 8 pre-selected provinces. In 2015, the team started the empirical fieldwork and found that rural Thailand is changing at a very high pace. Global change is in full swing.
Thinking about agriculture in Thailand, you have many images about rural life, about rice production, and coming here, seeing that people are very innovative, taking up new crops, setting up like rubber plantations in the north as well as in the northeast, changing their complete agricultural production system to a complete another system was a kind of surprise. I heard it already, but to see it and to see the implications of it, it's interesting. It's forcing us to take the reality into account in our research. The biggest challenge is, I think, that the reality is always more complex than armchair research, and we are geographers and we go to the field and we see that we are having a very dynamic agricultural system here in Thailand, and dynamic changes, and now we have to take all these impressions and make sense out of it.
Beyond writing for scientific journals, the young researchers group does not want to remain in the echo chamber of academia and research institutions. You can learn more here on their webpage, you can follow their blog, as well as Facebook and Twitter.